The story unfolds in a captivating way, featuring a fierce demoness who's become restless in hell since no demon there can rival her power. Eager for excitement, she snaps her fingers, hatching a thrilling plan to eliminate a few humans to unuse herself. Meanwhile, in the human world, high schooler Shuguro Kuru, bored and alone at home, is trying to stack a tower of cards to pass the time. Suddenly, he senses an eerie presence behind him. Turning, he's stunned to see a dark, swirling magical portal. A gateway to this world. Emerging from it is a terrifying demoness with eyes on her head who demands he play with her. Petrified, Suho's cards scatter as he lets out a terrified scream, overwhelmed by her sudden entrance. Ignoring his shock, she confidently announces herself as Debbie the Corsifa, the most formidable devil from hell, and warns him not to panic. Though terrified to see a demon in his room, Rokaru's fear momentarily subsides when he notices she's simply here to kill time, as she loves to fight and frequently dominates other devils. However, his relief vanishes when she proudly declares that her demon opponents are far too dull, so she's decided to obliterate the human race for entertainment. Horrified, Rokuru lets out a panic scream as she challenges him to prepare for battle. Overwhelmed, he wonders if she's truly a devil or if anyone will come to his aid. Desperate to escape, he suddenly spots the Joker card still in his hand and hatches a plan. As she flies toward him, aggressively preparing to punch him with one of her eye-clad fists, he boldly holds up the Joker card, revealing it to be an old maid card. She halts, staring at the card in utter confusion. Seizing the moment, he suggests they play this human game, saying it's the perfect way to pass time. Uninterested, she shrugs dismissively, refusing to play a human game. But with a clever smile, he goads her, hinting that she might be scared to take him on despite being the strongest demon. This unexpected taunt piques her interest, setting the stage for his clever plan to unfold. With a pleased and teasing grin, she acknowledges his courage to challenge her, yet with a devilish smile warns him of the inevitable death awaiting him if he loses. Sitting down, Rokuru nervously explains the rules, fearfully aware that a loss means his life is at stake. Still, he steels himself to give his absolute best, knowing victory is his only escape. He informs her game's objective. Whoever ends up with the Joker card loses, she scoffs, calling it a childish game, amused by simplicity. They begin playing with him strategizing carefully, knowing that the most critical move lies in the end, avoiding the Joker. Sensing his anxiety, she mocks him, suggesting he surrender now, promising him a grim end once she, as a devil, triumphs. Then, with a mischievous smile, she urges him to pick a card, intensifying his fear. Suddenly, he notices her top eyes fixed on one of the cards she's holding. As he hesitates, interpreting whether they're tracking the Joker, she playfully asks if he finds her face captivating, basking in her power. Caught between relief and doubt, Rokuru remains uncertain whether her gaze betrays the Joker's position or is simply a ploy to unnerve him. To test his theory, he cautiously moves his hand toward the Joker card. Debbie's expression shifts to one of smug satisfaction, but he catches the eyes on her head squinting slightly, even appearing nervous and sweating. As he shifts his hand to the other card, the strange eyes close in visible relief, almost as if delighted that the Joker remains hidden. At this, grows visibly tense, her frustration mounting as she snaps at him to make a choice quickly instead of dragging it out with suspense. Finally, he picks up a card, not the Joker, and Debbie's face contorts with shock and rage as she realizes she's been left holding the Joker. Furious and utterly astonished that she, the most powerful demon, could lose to a mere human, she screams at him in disbelief. Nervous yet triumphant, Rokuro starts to explain that he made his choice by observing the peculiar eyes on her head. Before he can finish, she cuts him off, accusing him of cheating. With a wicked smile, she challenges him to one more game, vowing he won't have any tricks to rely on this time. Setting the cards in her hand, she warns that if he loses this round, she won't hesitate to claim his life. With trembling hands and a heart full of dread, Rokuru once again picks a card, anything but the Joker. When she realizes that the Joker remains in her hand, Debbie lets out a furious scream, collapsing onto the bed and accusing him of having rigged the game. Yet her anger turns to bewilderment as he mentions that he simply relied on hints from the strange eyes on her head to guide his choice. Confused and stunned, she reaches to touch her head, clearly having no idea about the mysterious eyes assisting him. Observing her shock, Rokuro grows more puzzled, realizing she may be unaware of the extra set of eyes. Before she can say a word, he stands up with a teasing smirk, casually applauding her efforts in the game and then, with a light-hearted tone, suggests she should probably head back home. Irritated by her persistence for yet another rematch despite his 2 victories, Rokuro tries to decline, urging her to leave. But when she angrily protests, he reluctantly agrees to play one final round just to appease her. Instantly, her expression brightens and with a wicked grin, she warns him that this time she's onto his strategy and won't let him use the mysterious thing on her head as an advantage. As the game begins, she smirks, noticing the Joker card awkwardly stuck to another in his hand. He, now visibly sweating intense, realizes the stakes are higher than ever. Amused by his nervous expression, she grins slyly, certain of her victory, and confidently picks a card, declaring her impending win. But her eyes widen in confusion when he separates the Joker from the card it was stuck to, holding up 2 cards instead. Baffled by his trick, she's now thrown off balance. With a clever smile, Rokuro challenges her to pick one, and seeing her puzzled look, he can't help but think even a grade schooler would fall for such a simple ruse. Trying to maintain her composure, she confidently picks the card that isn't the Joker, only for him to ask if she's sure. Growing more uncertain, she changes her choice, and he once again prods her to make a final decision. His goal to unsettle her seems to be working as she becomes visibly annoyed. Enjoying her frustration, he taunts her to show her strongest demon power and choose a card. So Debbie suddenly springs to her feet, flashing a playful smile as she claims her back aches from the extended game. When she stretches, Rokuro notices the suspicious eyes on her head sneaking a peek at his cards. Infuriated, he snaps at her to play fair. Embarrassed, she sits back down, muttering about forgetting the thrill of a challenge as the unbeatable demon she is. Smiling slyly, she leans closer, intrigued by him as an interesting human, and declares she used a small trick to win this time. Confidently, she picks up a card, imagining her victory, only to discover it's the Joker yet again. Defeated, she sits down, even the eyes on her head shedding tears, and Rokuro, feeling a bit sorry for her, offers a cookie. Suddenly, she angrily shreds the cards, furious at losing to a human. Rising with renewed rage, she declares she'll tear him apart. Panicked, he reminds her of her promise not to kill him, but she just smiles and claims she never made any such promise, accusing him of playing tricks first. Just as she lunges with claws outstretched, her phone rings. It's the jailbreak administration instructing her to return. Ignoring the command, she notices a glowing portal beginning to pull her in. As Rokuro anxiously points out that she's sinking, she frantically shouts at him to prepare for her return. With a final ominous warning to keep his neck ready for her, she disappears into a flash of light. As sweat drips from his brow, Rokuro is left baffled by his bizarre encounter. When his parents return, he hesitantly tells them that Debbie the demon showed up at their house. The next day after school, Rokuro slumps on a bench, munching on a burger while brooding over his unsettling encounter with Debbie the devil. His thoughts spiral into worry and gloom until Mokuzuki Tamari-chan, a cheerful classmate, brightens the moment by playfully asking him to join her for a game of Shirazumo, where players push each other using their backs. Caught off guard by Tamari's enthusiasm, he thanks her for wanting to spend time together, but gently tries to explain that Shirazumo might not be the most fitting game for high school students. Undeterred, Tamari, cheeks flushed with excitement, insists she's ready to give it her best, shyly adding that she has a big butt and hopes it'll give her an edge. Trying to shift her focus, he eagerly suggests they browse magazines while waiting for the bus. But as soon as the word free leaves his mouth, a sudden wave of anxiety hits. He senses the ominous presence of a magic circle behind him. Noticing his tense expression, Tamari looks at him with concern, but he assures her everything is fine, even though dread prickles at the back of his mind, suddenly with a flash and a mischievous grin. Debbie the devil appears atop the nearby clock tower, making her presence known with dramatic flair. Startled, he calls out, asking why she's here. Debbie descends with an intense expression, scolding him for using her first name and reminding him that she's the mighty Debbie the Korothea. Before she can continue, Tamari interrupts, wide-eyed and starstruck, marveling at Debbie's cuteness and beauty. Despite his frantic attempts to warn Tamari not to praise Debbie, she continues, her excitement bubbling over as she remarks on Debbie's charm. Debbie, initially flustered by the compliments, softens for a moment, basking in attention. Yet as memories of her recent defeat resurface, her expression darkens, and she warns them that her mission is to destroy all humans after she defeats Rokuro in their next game. Panic floods him as he realizes he doesn't have his cards with him. Just as he prepares to voice his concerns, Tamari, oblivious to the warning signs, happily invites Debbie to join them for the Shirazumo game, treating her as if she were a friend. Hearing this, Debbie flashes a clever smile. Intrigued by the invitation, accepting the challenge with a glint of determination, she gears up to play, resolved not to lose this time. Debbie feels a rush of embarrassment when Tamari cheerfully explains the game's quirky rules. Players step into a circle and try to push each other out using only their butts. No other part of the body allowed. Knowing Debbie's immense strength as the most powerful devil, Rokuro feels a surge of fear, realizing a loss could mean serious trouble. As Temeru finishes drawing the circle, he scrambles for a way out, but finding none, reluctantly resolves to play and win. Standing in the circle, Rokuro notices Debbie hesitating on the sidelines. When he asks why she hasn't joined, she confidently claims she's plotting strategies. Tamari then points out Debbie's flushed face, but Debbie waves it off, boasting that she's merely envisioning his defeat. She warns him to be prepared for her kick, and once again, slyly questions if he's truly ready to face the strongest devil. Irritated, Rokuro dismisses her taunts, urging her to hurry as standing with his backside out is already embarrassing. However, he soon realizes from her averted gaze that Debbie herself might feel awkward about playing such a game with him. Frustrated, he thinks that for a mighty devil, she's sure caught up in the moment. When Debbie keeps stalling, claiming she's just warming up before starting, Rokuro, annoyed, suggests she should go home if she's so embarrassed. This infuriates her, and she immediately steps into the circle, boldly declaring that she's the strongest devil and won't be humiliated by anyone. However, Rokuro can't help but notice her awkwardness as she tries to convince herself to play, her confidence wavering with a hint of embarrassment. As the game begins, he gives her a light push, and to his astonishment, she lets out a loud scream, soaring into the air before crashing back down, as if struck by an enormous force. Devastated, Debbie begins to cry, claiming that since their backs touched, she's now tainted and unfit for marriage in the demon world. Irritated, Rokuro dryly suggests she head home since she lost the game. Glaring at him, she refuses to be humiliated by a mere human. Seeing her sadness, Tamari enthusiastically suggests they play again, though he looks at her in disbelief, explaining that if he loses, this devil might actually kill him. Initially, Tamari is shocked but quickly dismisses it, playfully suggesting he's exaggerating after all. She doesn't look like a true threat. Tamari cheerfully suggests Debbie-chan to play one more round, confident that as the strongest devil, she can finally defeat Rokuro. Although she's a bit nervous, she quickly composes herself and vows to win without letting him act cocky. He becomes uneasy, especially when Debbie's determined expression shows she's ready to play. Debbie stands with her back poised, unaware that Rokuro has noticed her. At Tamari's instruction, Debbie forcefully slides forward, aiming to push him out. Rokuro, however, skillfully sidesteps, causing her to lose her balance and tumble hard onto the ground. Frustrated, she shouts at him, accusing him of playing tricks on her when she finally mustered the courage to take the game seriously. He retorts that she's the one who insisted on another match and then, with Tamari's agreement, declares the game over. Seeing Debbie's disappointed face, she reassures her, suggesting that she practice more, playfully adding that there's no shame in this game, it's all just harmless fun. He feels a bit uneasy about Tamari's encouragement, but Debbie blushes, touched by Tamari's kindness. As the game resumes, Debbie's phone begins to ring, showing a call from the Underworld Jailbreak Administration. The scene shifts to the depths of hell where the administrators, each with unusual eyes atop their heads, anxiously monitor their screens. Growing uneasy as Debbie Salma continues to ignore their calls, one devil suggests forcibly pulling her back from the human world. However, the lead administrator, intrigued by Debbie's battle on Earth, instead opens a portal to observe her. Through the portal, they watch Debbie and Rokuro in a bizarre contest, using their backsides to shove each other. Just as Debbie playfully winks and warns him of her ultimate push, the lead devil activates the teleportation switch. In an instant, she's yanked back to the underworld in a flash of light, leaving Tamari and Rokuro bewildered by her abrupt vanishing act. Spotting the train, they decide to head home, amused by the sudden end to Debbie's battle. The administrators feign ignorance, acting as though they saw nothing, disappointed to have missed any actual action in Debbie's fight. Her attempt to kill time, it seems, remains unresolved. The following day, as Tamari and Rokuro enjoy a game of volleyball, Debbie approaches with a devilish grin, challenging him to play, declaring she's on a mission to kill time. When he declines, irritated by her persistence, she trembles with anger, assuming he's casting aside her feelings and warns him she might destroy humanity. Seeing her growing frustration, he quickly clarifies that they're playing volleyball, which requires at least 4 players. Tamari, meanwhile, lights up at Debbie's arrival. Despite his attempts to explain that two people can simply toss the ball back and forth, Debbie insists on joining the game, dramatically dropping to the ground and pouting like a child. Realizing they do need another player, she suddenly springs up, disregards their surprised looks, and makes a quick call. Moments later, with a triumphant smile, she announces their fourth player is on the way. He is left bewildered as a magical gate circle materializes behind him, and an administration member he previously encountered steps out. Shocked at the sight of another devil whom Debbie introduces as Rizu Urisuki and proudly claims that she summoned her into the human realm. Realizing that Debbie-sama has been mingling with humans to pass the time and had even played a game the previous day, she eagerly agrees to join the game. However, upon noticing the two devils, he hesitates, finding Rizukin's aura utterly distinct from Debbie's, making her seem less like a demon. Before he can voice his thoughts, Tamari excitedly asks if Rizuki is as strong as Debbie. Nervously, she shakes her head, explaining that she is nowhere near Debbie's level. With an embarrassed smile, she admits her sole skill is brewing black tea. He, impressed, looks at her, but Debbie interrupts, shouting that he should not admire Rizuki for possessing actual qualities compared to her. When Rokuro seriously asks about her abilities, she, after a moment of contemplation, reluctantly reveals that her power is crushing things. Intrigued, he jokingly asks if she operates heady machinery, to which she responds with frustration. Nevertheless, she suggests they start the game, as time is of the essence. After forming the teams, Tamari-chan confidently outlines the rules. The opponent must not drop the ball. Then she jumps with excitement, urging everyone to have fun since it's just a game. With determination, Debbie hurls the ball so forcefully that it soars into the air, disappearing from view. But Riza-chan retrieves the ball, and Rokuro is visibly impressed by her strength. He can't help but feel impressed by her efficiency compared to Debbie-chan. However, seeing his admiration for her subordinate triggers Debbie's irritation, prompting her to shout at him. Undeterred by her anger, he passes the ball to Riza-chan and encourages her to serve. She becomes anxious, admitting she has never played a game like this before. With Tamari's cheers and Debbie's tough love, even though she stumbled, she still pushes Rizu to go for it. Determined, she holds the ball and tosses it into the air. Tamari and he gasps in surprise at her composed movements. She executes a float serve with a powerful jump, sending the ball soaring over the net. They erupt in cheers and admiration, astonished that it's her first time playing. Although a bit nervous at the praise, Rizuki feels a spark of confidence. To tease Debbie, Rokuro asks for her thoughts on Rizuki's performance, to which she hotly replies that it was just okay, claiming she only succeeded because she watched her. Frustrated by Debbie's stubborn attitude, he struggles to comprehend her mindset, especially after losing the game. To lighten the mood, Rizu smiles and thanks Debbie, affectionately acknowledging that she's been following in her footsteps. Then announcing that he will serve this time, he playfully challenges Debbie to show her skills, calling her a useless devil. Angered, she retorts that she is not useless and demands that Rizuki stand behind her as her subordinate, ready to support her in the game. As he launches the ball with immense force, she leaps confidently, teasing him as a weak serve boy. She stomps her foot, propelling herself into the air to strike the ball, but misjudges its location. The ball smacks her in the face, sending her crashing to the ground and causing concern among the others. The ball flies up high, and Rizuki quickly springs into action, hitting it back to the human team's court. Everyone watches in awe as Rizuki scores 2 consecutive goals, while Debbie also manages an impressive face serve. Instead of basking in her glory, she rushes over to Debbie, celebrating their joint victory. However, her joy quickly turns to worry as she notices Debbie-sama hiding her face. Debbie looks up, tears streaming down her cheeks, declaring her hatred for this kind of game. She sobs, admitting that despite winning, she feels unhappy, lamenting that she tried her best but still failed. Rizuki encourages her, insisting she did well, but Debbie continues to cry, claiming Rizu is far better and that her strength pales compared to her beauty. Rizu gently reassures her, praising Debbie's beauty and strength in her own right. He, feeling remorseful for any inappropriate remarks, apologizes as well. Despite her tears, Debbie expresses a desire to continue playing, her spirits lifting as she declares it's her turn to serve. Just then, before she can start, Riz-chan apologizes, reminding her that their time is running out. At that moment, a magic gate materializes nearby, signaling the end of their game. The next day at school, during break, Rokuro and Tamari enjoy lunch while playing a riddle game. Tamari, excited, presents a riddle about a ball that has 4 sides. Rokyuro thinks for a moment and then confidently answers, cardboard. Thrilled by his correct guess, Tamari beams and Rokyuro shyly smiles back. Riddles they found are a fun way to pass the time. As they play, Rokyuro senses Debbie approaching and suggests they stop. Impressed, Tamari praises his keen awareness just as Debbie appears through a magic portal. She greets them with excitement and learning about their game, boasts that she'll win, declaring riddles easy. Rokyuro doubts her confidence and teases that riddles need some brain power. Offended, Debbie insists she's known among devils for her wisdom and won't be stumped by simple human questions. To test her, Rokyuro gives her a practice riddle. What is something called bread but can't be eaten? Debbie looks puzzled, not understanding. When he explains that the answer is a frying pan, she's frustrated, claiming it doesn't make sense. Rokyuro laughs and explains that it's just a joke. Annoyed, she warns that if she loses, she'll destroy the world. Tamari quickly calms her down, reminding her it was only practice. Relieved, Debbie promises she'll win the next round. Rokyuro gives her a new riddle, asking what you get when you combine 8 and 8. Debbie answers 18 without hesitation, which makes him chuckle and reveal that the correct answer is parents. She looks confused and angry, not understanding how parents could be the answer. He explains that hachi, meaning 8 in Japanese, sounds like mom and dad. Debbie, still lost, gets upset, sensing her frustration. Rokyuro and Tamari comfort her, explaining that riddles are meant for fun and to help her think creatively. Rokyuro gives her one more chance, asking, what's something that tastes good at the end? Debbie repeats the question, concentrating hard while Tamari encourages her to think deeply. Seeing Debbie's intense focus, Rokyuro realizes she's putting her all into this simple game. It's a funny yet sweet moment as they watch her try so hard, making the stakes feel surprisingly important. As the school bell rings, signaling the end of the break, Rokyuro respectfully encourages Debbie to provide her answer quickly. He notices her serious expression, realizing she is giving her all to solve the riddle. Tamari, watching this interaction, finds it adorable that a devil is so engaged in the game, adding a light-hearted charm to the moment. Suddenly, Debbie shouts that she has the answer. Both Rokyuro and Tamari lean in, eager to hear what she has come up with. However, their excitement quickly fades when Debbie confidently announces that after much brainstorming, she has arrived at the delicious answer to the riddle. With a happy, blushing face, she asks for their opinions, only to be met with Rokyuro's nervous admission that her answer is incorrect and that the right answer is shumai. Debbie's confusion is palpable as Rokyuro explains that uemi means delicious, attempting to ease her disappointment. He encourages her not to be too hard on herself, noting that her answer wasn't bad either. As the magic gate begins to pull her away, Rokyuro motivates her, reminding her that there's still plenty of time left to enjoy the day. This supportive exchange reinforces their growing friendship and adds a warm touch to the light-hearted atmosphere. The following day, Temari-chan delights in the enchanting weather, contemplating how to enjoy her free time. Suddenly, Debbie-chan materializes beside her from a mesmerizing magic gate, wearing an anxious expression. She gasps in astonishment upon discovering that Rokyuro-kun has ventured to the next town. Fury surges within her as she scolds him for carelessly abandoning her, especially after she had set aside her bustling work to relish moments with him. Noticing the disappointed look on Debbie's face, she exuberantly offers to surprise her with a delightful tea outing. Although she is unfamiliar with the concept of tea, she nervously agrees and they waltz into a charming cafe. As they chat, Tamari excitedly praises the cafe, pointing out the delicious tea, the amazing cake, and how they can enjoy relaxing moments together. Their lively conversation catches the attention of other customers, adding to the cafe's cheerful atmosphere. Tamari squeals with glee when Debbie enthusiastically agrees to sample the tea. Channeling her devilish charm, she dives into the cake while Tamari affectionately offers her a bite. However, Debbie bashfully clamps her mouth shut, feeling flustered at being fed. Initially perplexed, Tamari bursts into laughter, believing this playful gesture to be hilariously entertaining. To her astonishment, Debbie adorably opens her mouth, eyes closed tightly, prompting Tamari to eagerly feed her with a fork. One delicious bite of the cake leaves Debbie enchanted, and she happily feeds Tamari a piece too. Overjoyed, Tamari grins at Debbie's delight. She leans into gently white cake crumbs from Debbie's cheek, making Debbie squeal from the ticklish touch, and they both burst into laughter. But Debbie suddenly stops, captivated by Tamari's long eyelashes. She asks to touch them, and when Tamari agrees, Debbie finds herself mesmerized by her soft skin, bright eyes, and graceful presence. This playful moment deepens their bond, revealing the warmth of their growing friendship. However, Debbie the Devil is overwhelmed with embarrassment when Tamari affectionately touches her, feeling a mix of passion and happiness at her honesty. With a hint of irritation, Debbie questions why Tamari is acting a bit peculiar today. Laughing, she explains that she genuinely wants to enjoy a delightful time together. Yet her demeanor shifts as she apologizes for potentially bothering Debbie-chan. To ease her guilt, admires her, insisting that she is also a wonderful girl for a human and isn't bothering her at all. Upon hearing this, she bursts into excited laughter once more, appreciating Debbie's charm. With a joyful smile, she declares her victory in spending time over tea. For the first time, Debbie agrees, and they dive into a lively discussion about the scrumptious cake, bonding like true friends. Just then, Rokuro-kun walks in, surprised to see the relaxed atmosphere between Debbie and Tamari. Tamari had told him about Debbie's visit, but he hadn't expected to see them getting along so well. Confused, he can't help but express his surprise. Ignoring his reaction, Debbie waves goodbye to Tamari-chan, promising to return and spend more time together before disappearing through the magic portal. Rokuro stands there, still puzzled by how close they'd become, struggling to understand how their relationship has changed so quickly. The next day, when Debbie visits Rokuro at his home, she angrily berates him, shouting because he won't take a break for 30 minutes to play with her. Despite his explanations that he can't waste time playing due to midterm exams, he suggests, perhaps a bit hopefully, that she go home. True to form, she responds with threats, warning him about the destruction of humanity if he refuses to play. Initially startled, Rokuro quickly regains his composure and playfully challenges Debbie, saying that if she can stay quiet for 30 minutes, he'll make time to play. His trick seems to work as she huffs in frustration, drops into a chair, and firmly reminds him not to underestimate the power of the great devil, Debbie the Corsifa. Not expecting her to actually comply, he turns his attention back to studying. However, it's not long before she begins making strange sounds, attempting to motivate him to hurry up. He glances back at her in confusion but dismisses it as his imagination. Yet again, he's distracted by the fluttering of little feathers in the air, despite her efforts to remain quiet. Debbie's body moves restlessly. Irritated, he snaps at her to be quiet, but she looks puzzled and slightly embarrassed, realizing she's unconsciously fidgeting. Apologizing for making her wait, he acknowledges her excitement to play. Debbie, maintaining her confidence, suggests he needn't worry, as she finds it amusing to accompany a child in the park. Although he isn't convinced, he sees through her facade as her suspicious expressions betray her true feelings. To eliminate the distraction, Debbie quickly ties a black scarf around her head, causing her eyes to glaze over in confusion, unaware of her actions. She assures him she won't create any more distractions. Though still a bit distracted, he resolves to focus on his studies, knowing Debbie is waiting for him. However, as he tries to concentrate, her mouth unintentionally makes noises. When he turns around in annoyance, he's taken aback to see her eyes glistening with tears, clearly on the verge of crying. Upon realizing that Debbie can't hold back her desire to play games, she shamefully admits, tears glistening in her eyes, that she's never had to wait for anything before, making her frustration all the more intense. Seeing her tear-streaked face, Rokuro decides he must play with her, wanting to prevent those adorable eyes from crying any further. But Debbie, brimming with excitement, urges him to study first, insisting there's no need for sympathy when it comes to games. To avoid the distraction of her big, sorrowful eyes, she binds a black scarf over them too. With a playful yet serious tone, she demands he tightly ties her up with a rope, though he feels guilty about her condition. Once she's securely bound, he settles down to study for 30 minutes. However, as he tries to focus, he becomes increasingly irritated by the odd noises escaping her tightly sealed mouth. The tension mounts as he struggles to concentrate, knowing he needs to study hard for his exam. Yet the distracting situation is almost unbearable. He reminds her to be patient, urging her to endure just a little longer while he commits himself to his studies. Meanwhile, in hell, Rizuki grows anxious, trying to contact Debbie, but her communication line is dead. Determined to retrieve Debbie and bring her back, she conjures a magic gate and steps through it. While in the human world, after preparing for an exam, he, pleased to see her, expresses appreciation for her patience, hinting it's almost time to play. However, Rizuki, after seeing Debbie tides and roves, misinterprets his words, and a furious shout erupts from her as she sees him. Despite Debbie's attempts to explain, her tightly bound mouth renders her speechless. Rizuki, filled with concern, envelopes her in a fierce hug, scolding Rokuro. She warns him of dire consequences should he ever think to harm her master, the devil Debbie. Rokuro struggles to clarify the misunderstanding, but it takes time for him to convey his side of the story. The next day, just as Rokuro thinks his troubles are finally behind him, he learns that the exam he studied so hard for has been rescheduled, leaving him feeling more overwhelmed than ever. The following day, Temari-chan delights in the enchanting weather, contemplating how to enjoy her free time. Suddenly, Debbie-chan materializes beside her from a mesmerizing magic gate, wearing an anxious expression. She gasps in astonishment upon discovering that Rokuro-kun has ventured to the next town. Fury surges within her as she scolds him for carelessly abandoning her, especially after she had set aside her bustling work to relish moments with him. Noticing the disappointed look on Debbie's face, she exuberantly offers to surprise her with a delightful tea outing. Although she is unfamiliar with the concept of tea, she nervously agrees and they waltz into a charming cafe. As they chat, Temari excitedly praises the cafe, pointing out the delicious tea, the amazing cake, and how they can enjoy relaxing moments together. Their lively conversation catches the attention of other customers, adding to the cafe's cheerful atmosphere. Temari squeals with glee when Debbie enthusiastically agrees to sample the tea. Channeling her devilish charm, she dives into the cake, while Temari affectionately offers her a bite. However, Debbie bashfully clamps her mouth shut, feeling flustered at being fed. Initially perplexed, Temari bursts into laughter, believing this playful gesture to be hilariously entertaining. To her astonishment, Debbie adorably opens her mouth, eyes closed tightly, prompting Temari to eagerly feed her with a fork. One delicious bite of the cake leaves Debbie enchanted, and she happily feeds Temari a piece too. Overjoyed, Temari grins at Debbie's delight. She leans into gently white cake crumbs from Debbie's cheek, making Debbie squeal from the ticklish touch, and they both burst into laughter. But Debbie suddenly stops. Captivated by Temari's long eyelashes, she asks to touch them, and when Temari agrees, finds herself mesmerized by her soft skin, bright eyes, and graceful presence. This playful moment deepens their bond, revealing the warmth of their growing friendship. However, Debbie the Devil is overwhelmed with embarrassment when Temari affectionately touches her, feeling a mix of passion and happiness at her honesty. With a hint of irritation, Debbie questions why Temari is acting a bit peculiar today. Laughing, she explains that she genuinely wants to enjoy a delightful time together. Yet her demeanor shifts as she apologizes for potentially bothering Debbie-chan. To ease her guilt, Debbie admires her, insisting that she is also a wonderful girl for a human and isn't bothering her at all. Upon hearing this, she bursts into excited laughter once more, appreciating Debbie's charm. With a joyful smile, she declares her victory in spending time over tea. For the first time, Debbie agrees, and they dive into a lively discussion about the scrumptious cake, bonding like true friends. Just then, Rokuro-kun walks in, surprised to see the relaxed atmosphere between Debbie and Temari. Temari had told him about Debbie's visit, but he hadn't expected to see them getting along so well. Confused, he can't help but express his surprise. Ignoring his reaction, Debbie waves goodbye to Temari-chan, promising to return and spend more time together before disappearing through the magic portal. Rokuro stands there, still puzzled by how close they'd become, struggling to understand how their relationship has changed so quickly. The next day, when Debbie visits Rokuro at his home, she angrily berates him, shouting because he won't take a break for 30 minutes to play with her. Despite his explanations that he can't waste time playing due to midterm exams, he suggests, perhaps a bit hopefully, that she go home. True to form, she responds with threats, warning him about the destruction of humanity if he refuses to play. Initially startled, Rokuro quickly regains his composure and playfully challenges Debbie, saying that if she can stay quiet for 30 minutes, he'll make time to play. His trick seems to work as she huffs in frustration, drops into a chair, and firmly reminds him not to underestimate the power of the great devil, Debbie the Corsifa. Not expecting her to actually comply, he turns his attention back to studying. However, it's not long before she begins making strange sounds, attempting to motivate him to hurry up. He glances back at her in confusion, but dismisses it as his imagination. Yet again, he's distracted by the fluttering of little feathers in the air. Despite her efforts to remain quiet, Debbie's body moves restlessly. Irritated, he snaps at her to be quiet, but she looks puzzled and slightly embarrassed, realizing she's unconsciously fidgeting. Apologizing for making her wait, he acknowledges her excitement to play. Debbie, maintaining her confidence, suggests he needn't worry, as she finds it amusing to accompany a child in the park. Although he isn't convinced, he sees through her facade as her suspicious expressions betray her true feelings. To eliminate the distraction, quickly ties a black scarf around her head, causing her eyes to glaze over in confusion, unaware of her actions. She assures him she won't create any more distractions. Though still a bit distracted, he resolves to focus on his studies, knowing Debbie is waiting for him. However, as he tries to concentrate, her mouth unintentionally nicks noises. When he turns around in annoyance, he's taken aback to see her eyes glistening with tears, clearly on the verge of crying. Upon realizing that Debbie can't hold back her desire to play games, she shamefully admits, tears glistening in her eyes, that she's never had to wait for anything before, making her frustration all the more intense. Seeing her tear-streaked face, Rokuro decides he must play with her, wanting to prevent those adorable eyes from crying any further. But Debbie, brimming with excitement, urges him to study first, insisting there's no need for sympathy when it comes to games. To avoid the distraction of her big, sorrowful eyes, she binds a black scarf over them too. With a playful yet serious tone, she demands he tightly ties her up with a rope, though he feels guilty about her condition. Once she's securely bound, he settles down to study for 30 minutes. However, as he tries to focus, he becomes increasingly irritated by the odd noises escaping her tightly sealed mouth. The tension mounts as he struggles to concentrate, knowing he needs to study hard for his exam, yet the distracting situation is almost unbearable. He reminds her to be patient, urging her to endure just a little longer while he commits himself to his studies. Meanwhile, in hell, Rizuki grows anxious, trying to contact Debbie, but her communication line is dead. Determined to retrieve Debbie and bring her back, she conjures a magic gate and steps through it. While in the human world, after preparing for an exam, he, pleased to see her, expresses appreciation for her patience, hinting it's almost time to play. However, Rizuki, after seeing Debbie tides and roves, misinterprets his words, and a furious shout erupts from her as she sees him. Despite Debbie's attempts to explain, her tightly bound mouth renders her speechless. Rizuki, filled with concern, envelopes her in a fierce hug, scolding Rokuro. She warns him of dire consequences should he ever think to harm her master, the devil Debbie. Rokuro struggles to clarify the misunderstanding, but it takes time for him to convey his side of the story. The next day, just as Rokuro thinks his troubles are finally behind him, he learns that the exam he studied so hard for has been rescheduled, leaving him feeling more overwhelmed than ever. The following day, as usual, Debbie visits Rokuro and Tamari for a gaming session. This time, Tamari's boss has organized a sea fishing trip. However, upon witnessing Debbie yawning and dismissively declaring the game boring for merely catching fish, Rokuro's irritation flares. He sternly suggests that if she dislikes it so much, she should just go home. Her jaw drops in disbelief at his audacity, prompting him to remind her that such rude behavior is unbecoming of the strongest devil, igniting his curiosity about her true strength. In a fit of frustration, Debbie retorts loudly, but Rokuro counters her outburst by stating that her behavior is hardly adult-like. Determined to prove him wrong, she grabs a fishing rod, motivated by the challenge despite her lack of experience. Rokuro proposes a contest. Whoever catches the most fish will be declared the winner, and she eagerly accepts, believing it will be an easy victory for her. However, when he instructs her to bait the hook with a living worm, she adamantly refuses to touch it, her expression revealing her underlying fear. Teasing her about being frightened of such a tiny creature, she angrily insists that anyone would be disgusted by that slimy thing. He encourages her to simply hold it, assuring her it will be harmless afterward, but she screams in fright, desperately requesting he try the worm elsewhere. As she trembles with fear, Tamari steps in to calm her, reassuring Debbie that she can take her time and will gradually become accustomed to the worm. Meanwhile, Rokuro feels a pang of disappointment at her hesitance. Yet with Tamari's encouragement, Debbie gathers her courage, boldly apologizing for keeping them waiting. With renewed enthusiasm, she declares her intention to prove she is indeed the strongest devil by winning the fish-catching competition. Rokuro and Tamari happily catch fish on one side of the boat, while Debbie stares despondently on the other. Despite her best efforts, she struggles to catch even a single fish. After 30 minutes, frustration overtakes her and she collapses in tears, feeling disheartened by Rokuro's expectations. Seeing her distress, Tamari and Rokuro excitedly encourage her, reminding her that there's still time left and that she's the strongest devil. Motivated by their support, Debbie rises and tries once more. This time, her spirits lift as she feels a tug on her rod. She eagerly pulls it up, revealing a large, beautiful fish. Temari cheers her on, thrilled that she's finally caught one. However, as she lifts the fish, its strong, fishy smell overwhelms her, and she instinctively recoils in disgust, struggling to hold it. Rokuro urges her to grab the fish quickly so they can cook it, but both are shocked when it slips from her grasp and splashes back into the water. To mask her fear, Debbie makes a lame excuse, claiming she is too drunk to manage, but Rokuro sees through her lie. Despite his irritation, he feels a flicker of admiration for her determination. Before they can continue their conversation, they are startled to notice Debbie's fishing line stretching unnaturally, indicating something heavy is on the other end. Their hearts race as they realize a shark lurks in the water. He quickly instructs Temari to start the engines so they can retreat. However, Debbie, oblivious to the danger, stands up excitedly and attempts to pull her rod up, despite Rokuro's urgent warnings. Before he can stop her, she falls overboard, plunging into the water just as the shark's hungry mouth opens wide to devour her. In that critical moment, as the shark approaches, a burst of energy emanates from Debbie. Channeling her inner strength, she uses a magic spell that sends the shark retreating in fear. On the boat, he is consumed by guilt for provoking Debbie to fish, leading to her plunge into the ocean. He quickly removes his life jacket, ready to jump in and save her. Temari, however, urges him to stay put, warning that he could also become a victim of the shark if he acts recklessly. Just as he's about to leap, they notice a bubble of water rising to the surface. To their astonishment, emerges, sitting triumphantly atop the shark with a joyful, excited expression. She proudly waves at them, declaring it's all thanks to her fishing prowess. Despite her apparent triumph, he and Temari remain concerned about her safety. To reassure them, Debbie playfully pats the shark's head, and to their surprise, the creature responds affectionately, rubbing its face against her with a toothy grin. Delighted, Debbie beams with happiness, eager to learn more about the fish in the ocean. As they watch this incredible scene unfold, Temari whispers to him to be wary of Debbie-chan. While he struggles to believe that she truly has the ability to control the shark, could she really be the strongest devil? After a moment, they remind her that if she stays in the water too long, she could get sick. She nods in agreement and swims back to the boat. As she steps aboard, he can't shake the uneasy feeling that there's more to Debbie's powers than he knows. The next day, he rushes to finish his work, looking forward to Debbie's arrival for their game. Though part of him finds her daily visits a bit annoying, he readies their favorite strategy board game, Othello, setting up the white discs. Just as he finishes, he hears the familiar sound of a magic transport gate opening. Expecting it to be Debbie, he feels no fear until he freezes in shock as a large sword emerges from the portal. An elegant devil with black wings steps through, her face contorted with anger. She demands to know if he is Rokuro. Instantly terrified at the sight of another devil, he nervously inquires about Debbie. Before she can answer, Debbie timidly appears from behind her, slightly shaken but still composed. When Rokuro asks what's going on, Debbie explains that she accidentally made the Diablo mad. With a look of disbelief, she introduces her as her childhood friend and the commander of the order in their realm. As they talk, the commander glares at Rokuro with intensity. Assuming she must be a noble warrior, he's taken aback when she vehemently clarifies that she is more of a soldier like those in the human world. She tightly grips her sword, accusing Debbie of wanting to play with humans and return home a loser after every game. The commander's anger escalates and she scolds Debbie for such disgraceful behavior, despite her being the strongest devil. Debbie tries to explain that human games are complex, but the commander interrupts, angrily dismissing her excuses. Feeling ashamed, Debbie listens as the warrior lays bare the reality of her actions. She insists that Debbie has been wandering aimlessly and must prove herself by playing games in the human world. When Rokuro asks why the commander is so angry, she reveals that she's been trying to help Debbie for a long time, yet every effort only seems to frustrate her further. Innocently, Debbie wonders why she can't stand up for herself, prompting Rokuro to explain that the Diablo's frustrations are completely justified. Just then, the warrior demands to know what they're whispering about, causing both of them to fluster. Rokuro is shocked to learn that she rarely gets angry over minor issues. Their conversation takes a tense turn when the commander challenges Rokuro to a game, warning him that losing could cost him his life. Panic sets in as he tries to defuse the situation. But things worsen when Debbie defiantly claims Rokuro as her prey, vowing not to let the Diablo mock her. But suddenly, the warrior devil falls silent, folding her arms and adopting a haughty demeanor. She informs Debbie that by defeating Rokuro, she is merely cleaning up her mess, even threatening to call a court-martial if Debbie doesn't agree with her. Rokuro gets anxious at the thought of playing a game against another devil, especially one who appears stronger than Debbie. Despite his fear, he braces himself, deciding to give it a try. With renewed determination, he challenges her to an Othello game, which she dismissively agrees to, assuming it will be an easy victory. As the game unfolds, Rokuro's confidence wavers when he notices the warrior shift. She hangs her head, realizing she's on the verge of losing, with only a few black discs left on the board. An uncomfortable silence fills the air, and Rokuro feels a chill run down his spine as he notices her furious glare directed at the board. The reality sets in that she is too weak to win, which leads him to reconsider Debbie's strength, even as she claims to be a warrior. He glances over at Debbie, who is gleefully taunting the commander about her impending loss. Despite his attempts to shush her, Debbie's excitement is infectious. She jumps around, teasing the commander for her disgraceful performance, echoing the earlier comments the commander had made about Debbie's own failures. This only provokes the commander further, and she angrily yells at Debbie to stop, reminding her of her loss. Unfazed, continues to poke fun at her, highlighting how both of them are equally embarrassing now. The commander, feeling humiliated, demands a rematch, but before Rokuro can respond, Debbie teases her once more. This provokes the warrior even more, who warns Debbie to be quiet, threatening to show her what it means to be a commander. As they begin another game, the commander's situation worsens. She loses so badly that only 3 black discs remain on the board. Debbie can't help but smile brightly, joking that the board looks like a snowstorm with all the white discs belonging to Rokuro. Trying to intervene, he recognizes that the commander is on the verge of exploding with rage, but she warns once again, her anger palpable, and Debbie, sitting beside her, tries to calm the situation. She reminds the commander that she too was once a novice and gently taps her shoulder, encouraging her to bounce back from this defeat. He watches in awe as Debbie, despite her own losses, motivates her friend, taking on the role of a true mentor. Irritated by her constant encouragement, he challenges her to a game, eager to see her real skill. Debbie accepts with enthusiasm, ready to prove herself. But as they play, the board soon turns completely white. She doesn't leave a single black disc. Even in defeat, Debbie feels a spark of happiness, sensing she and the commander are finally on equal ground. Just as she begins to share her thoughts, the commander casts a spell, knocking her out. With a fierce, triumphant look, she slings Debbie over her shoulder like a warrior and turns to him, warning that while today's game was lost, he should brace himself for the punishment awaiting him next time. As the day drifts on, Debbie-chan sits on a swing, her spirits dampened as Rokuro informs her via phone that Tamari is running late. With a loud creak, she abruptly stops the swing, feeling a wave of disappointment wash over her. Noticing her gloomy expression, Rokuro suggests playing another game while they wait. He approaches her, taking a seat on the swing beside her, and remarks that it's been ages since he last swung on one. Debbie looks puzzled at his reference to the swing, prompting him to explain that swings are meant for children to play on. When she inquires further about swings, he excitedly shares how in movies, friends often have heartfelt conversations while swinging together. Debbie's confusion deepens at the mention of heartfelt conversations. After thinking for a moment, Rokuro clarifies that these discussions usually involve love interests and future plans. Seeing him struggle to explain, she laughs, teasing him that he must not have many friends if he doesn't understand such things. Initially flustered, Rokuro eventually admits that he doesn't have any siblings, which leads him to play alone most of the time. However, he excitedly mentions his interactions with Tamari, even though he's not the type to take chances with new friendships. Feeling a bit sorry for him, Debbie apologizes, playfully telling him not to be sad because he must have some good qualities. Rokuro interrupts her, his annoyance bubbling over, and advises her to listen more. Ishil admits that his days are usually quite noisy. When he reveals that she's the only person he plays with daily, Debbie's expression changes. Her face flushes with anger as she realizes he's trying to imply that they're friends. Fuming, she swings higher and scolds him, insisting he should never think of her as a friend since she's a devil and humans shouldn't befriend devils. Rokuro attempts to calm her down, clarifying that he didn't consider her a friend. He points out that instead of merely wanting to defeat him, she enjoys participating in the games he prepares. When he bluntly states that she's the one trying to be his friend, it feels as if he's caught her in a lie. Angrily, Debbie swings forcefully, accusing him of not understanding how easy it would be for her to kill him, given her strength as a devil. Yet she wants to defeat him in every game, asserting that simply killing him wouldn't satisfy her. Rokuro is taken aback, mouth agape, as she insists he is her rival, not a friend. Though initially confused, he grins, playfully taunting her that she's a rival who has never won against him. Debbie shouts in protest, but he finds joy in realizing that maintaining her pride is important to her. He concludes that being her rival is actually quite enjoyable. Before they can delve deeper into their conversation, Debbie excitedly shows him her phone, revealing a message from Temari that she's nearby. Rokuro is surprised to discover he has Temari's contact number. Debbie happily recounts their recent tea party and how they've registered as friends. However, her enthusiasm wanes when Rokuro cleverly reminds her that, according to her, devils and humans can never truly be friends. Though a bit puzzled, she counters that it ultimately depends on the individual. As their banter continues, the magic gate appears behind them, signaling a shift in their afternoon. The next day, the group excitedly decides to play the Daruma doll game. With Rizuki free for the day, she eagerly joins. Keen to witness her master, Debbie, showcase her legendary bravery. With a confident grin and a hearty laugh, she boasts that she'll win easily, and Temari cheerfully explains the main rule. If she so much as flinches when the Daruma doll turns, she's out. Temari graciously lets Debbie take the first turn. As Temari turns her back to the tree and closes her eyes, Debbie takes her mark. Before Temari can even begin, Debbie launches herself through the air with blind speed, landing behind Temari in a flash. The others are left awestruck by her dazzling speed, and with a smug smirk, she playfully asks if her speed has managed to scare them. Rizuki beams with pride, thrilled by her master's strength. For the next round, Rokuro takes on the role of the Daruma doll. Rizuki, brimming with admiration, motivates Debbie to give her best performance, declaring victory is already theirs. But this time, he knows he'll need to be more vigilant. His playful carelessness last time nearly cost her the game. With a dramatic wave of his hand, he warns them to be on their guard, reminding them that he'll be the demon this time, with both girls like children in comparison. As the game starts, he spins around to check on her players, and he's perplexed to see that Debbie hasn't budged. Intrigued, Rizuki telepathically asks why she hasn't moved. Chuckling, Debbie dismisses the question, claiming she's savoring the game's thrill. But Rizuki can sense something's amiss and presses further, prompting Debbie to confess with a slight blush she needs to go to the bathroom urgently. Ever the loyal friend, Rizuki immediately encourages her to take a break. But a mortified Debbie stubbornly insists that stopping now would be far too embarrassing. Rizuki, determined to support her master in her moment of need, urges her to move as little as possible until they reach the winning spot. With newfound resolve, they agree that Debbie will make one large leap forward, hoping she can hold out just a bit longer. However, as Debbie leaps, she falters halfway, struggling to keep control. Her eyes betray her discomfort, and when she turns to check on him, he can't help but tease her for moving so much slower than before. Only Rizuki knows the truth and gently suggests they call off the game, as Debbie is now desperately holding herself back from the ultimate embarrassment. Flustered, Debbie finally admits her predicament. She blushes as she quietly reveals that despite her pride, she may have reached her limit. Seeing her master's unwavering determination to maintain her pride, Rizuki stealthily presses the button on her magic gate. As Debbie quickly averts her eyes, Rizuki uses the magic gate to whisk her away to the safety of her own realm. After quickly taking care of business, Debbie reappears, feeling refreshed and renewed. But her relief is short-lived. She is astounded when he announces she's fallen for the game's trick. The Daruma doll was meant to turn around unexpectedly halfway, and she's been disqualified. Before she can voice her protest, Rizuki steps in with a mischievous grin, apologizing for cheating and wrapping Debbie in a playful hug. She laughingly admits defeat on their behalf and with a cheerful wave, whisks them both back to hell through the magic gate in a flash of light. As they disappear, their opponents stand in stunned silence, still trying to piece together the whirlwind of events that just unfolded. Back in hell, Debbie's Sama reassures a slightly guilty Rizu that she performed her duty well. The next day, Kyu Tazumi, the softball club ace, sits exhausted and frustrated after a tough practice. No matter how hard she tries, her pitches seem off, leaving her feeling helpless. As she slumps down, she hears a sudden burst of noise nearby. Debbie-chan and Rokuro are skipping stones by the field. Ignoring Rokuro's invitation, Debbie flings a stone so hard it flies across the field and crashes into the wall right beside Tazumi. Startled, Tazumi and Rokyuro exchange wide-eye glances, staring at the huge hole Debbie's stone has left in the wall. As they recognize each other, Rokyuro quickly introduces Tazumi to Debbie, mentioning in a whisper that she's not just any classmate, she's a devil. Skeptical, Tazumi raises an eyebrow, but one looking at the gaping hole convinces her to believe the outlandish claim. Grinning mischievously, Rokyuro holds up a pebble and announces today's game, Mizukiri, the water-skipping challenge. Frustrated yet intrigued, Tazumi humbly grabs Debbie's hand, requesting a lesson and throwing with the force she had just demonstrated. Rokyuro's eyes widen with disbelief, and he quickly warns Tazumi that Debbie's brute strength might not be ideal for the finesse required in Mizukuri. But Debbie, unfazed, snaps back at Rokyuro to keep quiet, and, striking a mentor's pose, tells Tazumi she has an eye for talent. She promises to teach her all she knows, and Tazumi eagerly thanks her, her face lighting up with hope. With a confident stance, Debbie begins her lesson, clutching a pebble as she explains that power is essential. Though she adds mysteriously, it's all about channeling strength. She demonstrates, concentrating her magical power into her right hand, but Rokyuro rolls his eyes, reminding Debbie that humans don't possess magic. Ignoring him, Debbie sternly tells him not to interrupt their training. Amused yet being used, Rokyuro watches as Debbie continues her unconventional guidance, urging Tazumi to throw the ball with a bang and send it soaring. Rokyuro can't help but groan at her cryptic advice, pointing out that Debbie's method relies on sheer brute force. Nevertheless, Tazumi takes Debbie's words to heart, and with newfound determination, she attempts the throw again, this time following Debbie's guidance but putting her own spin on it. She launches the ball sideways, mimicking Debbie's technique but refining it for Mizukiri, and the ball skips perfectly across the water. Impressed, Rokyuro praises her, teasing Debbie to pick up a few tips from Tazumi's refined throw. Seeing her success, Debbie, a bit wary now, opts to sit out, recognizing Tazumi's natural talent might surpass her own. As Tazumi beams, though, her frustration lingers, stemming from her recent performance on the softball field. With a heavy sigh, she shares with Rokyuro that, despite being the ace of her team, she feels like she's falling short as captain, especially with her team losing match after match. Clenching her fists, she admits to feeling powerless, her progress on the mound painfully slow. Rokyuro listens, a bit lost since he's not much of an athlete. Before he can respond, Debbie keeps launching stones, catching his attention. He sighs, telling her to stop, but she shoots him an annoyed look, frustrated by her struggles to grasp human games. In one final throw, she sends a pebble flying way across the riverbank and proudly asks for feedback. Rokyuro, holding back his irritation, tells her it overshot the mark. Ignoring him, Debbie turns to Tazumi, boasting about her skills as a mentor and encouraging her to watch closely. Tazumi, a bit confused but intrigued, watches Debbie's over-the-top gestures. Rokyuro explains with a sigh that Debbie often loses to him but keeps coming back, drawn to human games. Sensing Tazumi's uncertainty, Rokyuro reassures her that even Debbie gets frustrated, but losing is just part of learning. Suddenly, Debbie asks Tazumi if she truly wants to learn her secret technique. Blushing and smiling, Tazumi nods, playfully echoing Debbie's advice about gathering magic in her right hand. Rokyuro, baffled, watches in silence as Tazumi proudly thanks her devilish coach for the lesson. A few days later in the underworld, Debbie-chan stepped onto a scale, only to feel a rush of panic as she realized she'd gained weight, no doubt from all the treats her friend Tamari had been showering her with lately. Though visibly annoyed, she took a deep breath and composed herself, deciding there was only one solution. Determined to sweat off the extra pounds, she opted for a long, steamy bath, prepared to soak herself to the limit. To stay hydrated, she brought along a couple of drinks, added a cooling ice cream to ward off any fatigue, and even packed a few snacks for good measure. Settling into the bath, surrounded by her little comforts, she felt a wave of contentment, enjoying her time to relax and reset. The next day, when Debbie-chan visits Rokyuro to play a game, she angrily breaks his controller upon learning they're playing a fighting game. Rokyuro feels helpless. He knows fighting games are tough for her since he's still fairly new at them himself. But Tamari, cheerful as always, encourages him to play, reminding him they used to play together back in elementary school. Rokyuro's mood brightens as he remembers those days, picturing his whole class playing the game together. However, he soon explains that, for some strange reason, he stopped playing back then, leaving Debbie-chan eyeing him in confused curiosity. When he suggests they try a different game, she stubbornly insists on sticking to the fighting game, determined to win today. Rokyuro attempts to calm her, pointing out that without a controller, she won't be able to play. But Debbie-chan boldly declares she'll fight without one if she has to. Enthusiastically, she points to the laptop screen where two characters are battling and claims she could simply enter the game and fight herself. Shocked, Rokuro tries to stop her. But before he knows it, Debbie-chan calls Rizuki, who, with a touch of room magic, transports her directly into the screen. Rokuro stares in disbelief as Debbie-chan materializes inside the game. Although he's impressed with Rizuki's magic, he's frustrated. This hardly feels like a fair game now. Determined, Rokuro picks a strong warrior character to face off against Debbie-chan. From inside the screen, she grins and warns him that hand-to-hand combat is her specialty, daring him to prepare for a quick defeat. Despite feeling nervous, Rokuro braces himself, knowing Debbie-chan tends to slip up in intense moments. But to his shock, she lands a powerful punch right away, sending his character flying. He stares, wide-eyed as she taunts him from the screen, boasting about her speed and threatening to end the match in seconds, or even wipe out mankind if he loses. Nervously, Rokuro realizes he's in for a fierce battle, especially as she laughs at him, calling herself the strongest devil and mocking his skills. Refusing to be defeated, he finally calls for a rematch, and as the round starts, he uses a sneaky slide kick that catches her off guard, causing her to cry out in pain. Tamari, watching, explains to Rizuki that Rokuro's slide kick is notorious from their school days, a cheap trick he used to win back then, dragging his friends to quit in frustration. She recalls how, when their opponents blocked, Rokuro would go for a throw. And when they didn't, his kick would take them down. Tamari laughs, noting how his tricks once left him friendless as kids cried and gave up after facing his relentless moves. Inside the game, Debbie-chan, now sprawled on the ground and unable to move, starts to tear up. Rokuro smirks and advises her to be good and apologize as he pretends to console her for his cheap victory. Rising to her feet, teary-eyed, she smiles at him. And he finally gives her a light-hearted lesson on the sin of flaming in multiplayer games. Debbie-chan can only nod, realizing just how scary Rokuro can be when he gets serious.